Have you ever looked at your power bill and thought it's just a one-way street? You know, you use power, they send a bill, you pay it. End of story. But what if it didn't have to be like that? What if you could actually partner with the grid, save some serious cash, and help the planet, all without really doing a thing? Well, today, we're going to dive into a pretty revolutionary idea that makes all that possible: automated demand response. It's all about getting smarter with how we use energy, not just using more of it.
So let's kick things off with a problem that I'm sure you've felt, whether it's in a crazy high electricity bill or hearing about grid instability on the news. Why are our power grids under so much constant stress? It's a huge, complicated problem, but the solution is actually pretty elegant and, believe it or not, surprisingly simple in practice.
You see, at the heart of all this is a really delicate, non-stop balancing act. I mean, every single second of every single day, the amount of electricity being generated has to perfectly, and I mean perfectly, match the amount being used. If it's off by even a little bit, you start having problems like blackouts. And that balancing act, it's getting tougher and tougher every year. Now, what's really fascinating here is how the grid is getting squeezed from both sides. On one side, you've got demand just going through the roof. We've got growing populations and all this new tech like electric vehicles pulling more power than ever before. At the exact same time, our supply is shifting to renewables like wind and solar. And look, that's fantastic, but their output can be, well, a little unpredictable. This all comes to a head during those peak afternoon hours when demand just skyrockets, creating this huge mismatch. For decades, the answer was always the same: just build more power plants. It was expensive, often not great for the environment, but it was the only tool in the toolbox. But that raises a really game-changing question. What if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if instead of just focusing on increasing supply, we got really smart about managing our demand? And that thought, right there, brings us to the central concept of this whole thing: demand response. And this isn't just a small tweak. It's a completely different way of thinking about how we interact with our power grid. So what in the world is demand response, or DR? Put simply, it's any program that gives you, the customer, an incentive to change your electricity use when the grid sends out a signal, maybe because prices are high or there's a system emergency. And here's the key: it transforms us from just being passive consumers into active partners in keeping the whole system stable and running efficiently. And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from researchers Najavan and his colleagues really nails it. It's all about everyone, from regular homes to giant factories, working together to make the grid more reliable and, in return, getting better prices. It's a true win-win situation.
Now, for this whole partnership to actually work, we need to understand a really simple economic idea: elasticity. Don't worry, it's not as complex as it sounds. In this case, it just measures how much our energy use changes when the price changes. So for instance, if your utility says electricity is super cheap after 10 p.m., and suddenly thousands of people schedule their dishwashers to run then, bam, that's high elasticity. This sensitivity to price is basically the engine that makes demand response go.
So, when we talk about changing how we use energy, it really boils down to two main strategies, two key plays in the playbook. We can either shift when we use power, or we can shave off how much we're using during those really critical high-cost moments. Okay, so let's break down the difference because it's pretty important. Load shifting is all about timing. You still use the same amount of total energy, you just move it to a different, cheaper time. Think charging your electric car overnight instead of right when you get home at 6 p.m. Peak shaving, on the other hand, is different. It's about actually reducing how much power you're pulling from the grid during those peak hours, maybe by having a home battery kick on to run the air conditioner.
And you can see here, load shifting is often the simpler approach. It's mostly about smart scheduling to take advantage of those different time-of-use prices. Peak shaving, on the other hand, can be a bit more complex. It's designed to slash those really expensive charges for high demand, which usually means you need some on-site tech like batteries. The right move really just depends on what your goals are.
And just to be clear, this isn't some abstract theory. This is happening right now in the real world across all kinds of industries. You've got manufacturing plants using peak shaving to avoid huge costs on their heavy machinery, or big office buildings that shift their air conditioning schedules to run when power is cheapest. Even hospitals use peak shaving with their backup generators to guarantee they have steady, affordable power. The applications are pretty much endless.
Now you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this sounds great, but it also sounds like a lot of work. Constantly checking prices, fiddling with thermostats. But this is where the magic really happens. The entire process can be, and more it is, completely automated.
And this is what we call automated demand response, or ADR. It's designed to take the human completely out of the loop. Instead of you having to do anything, smart technology gets the signal straight from the grid and makes the adjustments for you automatically. It's instant, it's seamless, and it's incredibly efficient.
So how does this actually work? Let's break it down. Think of it like a simple conversation. The utility has a control system that's like the brain of the operation. It's called a virtual top node, or VTN, and its job is to send out signals when the grid is getting stressed. Then, on your end, in your home or business, you have a device that acts as the receiver. That's the virtual end node, or VEN. It hears the signal and automatically tells your stuff, like your thermostat or your EV charger, what to do.
Now, for all these different gadgets from all these different companies to work together, they all need to speak the same language. That universal language is a standard called OpenADR. It's basically the common protocol that lets any certified brain talk perfectly to any certified receiver. It's the secret sauce that makes this whole automated ecosystem possible.
Okay, so what's the bottom line here? What's the real payoff for all of this technology and coordination? Well, the benefits are huge, and they create this amazing positive ripple effect for you, for the community, and for the entire planet.
Let's just walk through that chain of benefits. First, for you and me, it means lower energy costs. Simple as that. You save money by using cheaper electricity, and you can even get paid with direct financial incentives. Second, for the grid itself, it's a massive boost in reliability. When you ease that strain during peak hours, you help prevent blackouts and keep the whole system stable for everybody. And finally, that stability creates huge environmental benefits. It allows us to bring more renewables online and makes us less reliant on old, dirty power plants. So, as we move into a future with more electric cars, more smart homes, and a bigger reliance on electricity than ever before, it really leaves us with one final thought. For over a century, our focus has always been on just building more supply. But maybe the real key to a clean, affordable, and reliable energy future isn't about making more power, but about being smarter with the power we have. Thanks for diving into this with me.